Welcome to Let's Talk Wellness Now, the podcast where we deep dive into the science of health, wellness, and everything you need to live your best life. I'm your host, Dr. Deb Muth, founder of Serenity Healthcare Center and Serenity Aesthetics and Wellness. Here on the show, we don't just talk about wellness, we teach it. We equip you with the practical science-based tools to take control of your health and empower your body to heal naturally. Today, we're talking about a fascinating and often misunderstood topic, the immune system, and how it plays a critical role in brain health. This is a must-listen episode for anyone who's worried about conditions like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, or multiple sclerosis, MS. Or if you simply just want to learn how to optimize your overall health. By the end of the episode, you'll understand how your immune system works from the first responders to the specialized forces, why your brain has its own immune system and how it protects your neurons, the connection between chronic inflammation and neurodegenerative diseases, and most importantly, how you can support your immune system and brain health starting today. Stay tuned because I'll share a powerful case study from one of our patients at Serenity Healthcare Center that illustrates how impactful this knowledge can be. So grab your tea, take a deep breath, and let's dive into today's episode of Let's Talk Wellness Now. So the general immune system is an innate and specific defense. I want to start with an overview of the immune system itself. This incredible network is divided into two main parts, the innate immune system and the adapted immune system, or as I like to call them, the first responders and the special forces. Now, your first responders, the innate immune system, is your body's first line of defense, and it's always on duty. So imagine it as your security guards stationed at the entry points of your body, like your skin, your mucous membranes, and they're even your chemical defenses, such as stomach acid. This kills harmful bacteria and the enzymes in the tears and breaks down those invaders. When a pathogen like a virus, a bacteria, or a fungi makes it past these barriers, the innate immune system jumps into action. Its response is immediate but non-specific, meaning it treats every invader the same way. Key players in this system include our macrophages. Think of these as the immune system's garbage collectors. They roam your tissues looking for any harmful bacteria or viruses to engulf and destroy. This process is called phagocytosis, where the macrophages essentially eat the pathogen, kind of like Pac-Man, if you remember that game from way back, right? Then we have the neutrophils. Now, these are the reinforcements. They're the most abundant type of white blood cell in your bloodstream and are called to action when there's an infection. They also destroy pathogens through phagocytosis and release substances to kill the invaders. But there's one thing about the innate immune system. While it's fast and effective in the short term, it's not very specific, and it doesn't have the ability to tailor its response to particular invaders, which is where the adaptive immune system comes in. Now, your adaptive immune system are your special forces. This is like your team of highly trained specialists. Think of this as your what's the name that I'm thinking of? In the military, these are your special forces, right? These are the guys that come in and they are stealth in nature. They take out the bad guys and they're in and out before you even know that they were there. So unlike the innate immune system, the adaptive immune system doesn't respond immediately. It takes time to analyze the invader, figure out its weak spots, and mount that precise attack. Now, the adaptive system relies on two types of cells. T cells, these are the field commanders. They orchestrate the immune response, directing all of the cells to where they're needed to go. And certain T cells, called cytotoxic T cells, even destroy infected cells directly. Now, your B cells, these are immune system weapon manufacturers. They produce antibodies, specialized proteins that lock into those specific invaders, marking them for destruction or neutralizing them outright. Here's the coolest thing about the adaptive system. It learns. So once it fights off a specific invader, it creates a memory cell, which sticks around in your body. And these memory cells allow your immune system to respond faster and more effectively if you're exposed to the same pathogen again in the future. This is the basis of how some vaccines are supposed to work. They train your adaptive immune system without exposing you to the full disease. Now, here's a really good example. Let's talk about the common cold. When you're first exposed to the cold virus, your innate immune system jumps into action. The macrophages and the neutrophils work to contain the infection. They engulf, they destroy as many viruses as they can. This is why you might feel symptoms like a fever, body aches, stuffy nose early on. The innate system's inflammatory response is in full swing. But if the virus manages to spread, your adaptive immune system steps in. Takes a little longer because your T cells and B cells need time to recognize the cold virus and create a tailored response. So B cells start producing antibodies that specifically target that strain of the virus, and the T cells attack infected cells directly. Here's where it gets interesting. Once your adaptive immune system has fought off the cold, it stores the memory of that virus. So if you're exposed to the same strain again, your body can mount a much faster response and a stronger response, often neutralizing the virus before you even feel sick. Now, one of the problems we have with this is that viruses mutate. And so they don't have the exact same cell structure every single time once they've mutated. So sometimes your body will recognize part of that virus, but it may not recognize the whole thing. And that's why people get sick every year with a different cold. So imagine you're defending a castle. The innate immune system is like the guards on the wall, repelling any attackers they see without worrying about who they are. The adaptive immune system is like a group of knights who study the enemy's strategy, develop that tailored plan, and then they train the castle's defenders to handle future attacks from the same enemy. Now, your immune system isn't just your defense system, it's your body's memory keeper, learning from past battles to protect you better in the future. Now, let's look at something that surprises a lot of people. Did you know your brain has its own immune system? Why does the brain need its own immune system? Because of something called the blood-brain barrier. This barrier is like an exclusive VIP club for your brain. Only select molecules like oxygen, nutrients, and hormones are allowed to enter. It keeps out most pathogens like bacteria and viruses, as well as some immune cells from the rest of your body. Now, this is how this is like supposed to work. It's supposed to keep things out. However, we've learned over time that these infections, these bacteria, these pathogens can cross the blood-brain barrier, which has made chronic illness and neurological diseases much more complex. Now, this level of protection is crucial because even a minor infection in the brain could cause a catastrophic damage to the delicate neurons. However, the same barrier that protects the brain also isolates it, which means the immune system in the rest of your body can't easily come to the brain's rescue when something goes wrong. Now, the microglia, these are the brain's cleanup crew. This is where the microglia are the brain's resident immune systems, or immune cells, I should say. They're tiny but incredibly powerful, and they work around the clock to keep your brain healthy. Patrolling the brain, the microglia act like the security guards, constantly scanning their environment for anything that doesn't belong. Damaged neurons, harmful proteins, and debris from dead cells. Phagocytosis is when they find something harmful. The microglia spring into action, engulfing and ingesting the threat in a process that we call phagocytosis. This keeps the brain clean and functional. Now, the microglia also play a role in maintaining the balance in the health of the brain. They help prune unnecessary synapses during brain development and even regulate neural circuits in adulthood. In a healthy brain, microglia perform these tasks seamlessly, allowing your neurons, the true stars of the brain, to focus on transmitting signals that control everything from memory to movement. But what happens when the microglia go rogue? Well, the brain, the microglia, this part of the brain function gets out of balance. And like any other part of the immune system, the microglia can become overactive. And that's really where part of the problem starts. When the microglia are constantly activated, they release inflammatory molecules designed to fight off invaders. And this is useful in the short term, but if this activation becomes chronic, it can cause significant harm. The inflammation doesn't just attack the invaders, it starts damaging healthy brain cells, particularly neurons. This chronic inflammation is a driving force behind neurodegenerative diseases. So in Alzheimer's disease, overactive microglia failed to clear the harmful protein plaques, such as amyloid beta. And these plaques disrupt communication between neurons and eventually lead to their death. In Parkinson's disease, inflammation accelerates the loss of dopamine-producing neurons, which are critical for movement and coordination. And in MS, the microglia and other immune cells attack the protective myelin sheath around the nerves, disrupting communication between the brain and the body. Chronic inflammation is like a fire that never gets put out. It doesn't just burn the invaders, it starts burning the house down. And in this case, the house is your brain, leading to symptoms like memory loss, difficulty moving, or other neurological impairments. Now, why the brain immune connection matters? What's so important about this? Well, the fact is that the brain has its own immune system. And this highlights the critical balance of how important this immune system in the brain is. Because when the microglia are functioning properly, they keep the brain clean, protect its neurons, and help maintain cognitive and motor functions. But when they go rogue, they can become the villains of the story, contributing to debilitating diseases. So let me give you a real-world analogy. Think of the microglia as the neighborhood watch group. When they're doing their job right, they keep the neighborhood safe, cleaning up any messes and dealing with any threats. But if they start seeing threats everywhere, even where there are none, they might go on a rampage, breaking windows and damaging property in the name of protecting the neighborhood. That's what happens in the brain when the microglia become overactive. Now, understanding how this microglia function has opened the doors to exciting new research, and scientists are now exploring ways to calm down overactive microglia or help them return to their healthy state. So, for example, there are new therapies that are being developed to target inflammation in the brain without suppressing the entire immune system. Research on lifestyle factors like diet, exercise, and sleep, these are showing how we can naturally reduce brain inflammation. And advanced lab models like brain organoids are allowing researchers to study how microglia interact with the neurons in diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. The good news is that we're learning more every day about how to support the brain's immune system and how to keep it in balance. So, what can we do to support our brain's immune system? Well, here are some practical tips. You can eat an anti-inflammatory diet, including plenty of omega-3 fatty acids found in fatty fish, antioxidants in colorful fruits and vegetables, and polyphenols in foods like green tea and turmeric. You want to make sure you're getting quality sleep. Your brain and immune system repair themselves during deep sleep. Aim for 7 to 9 hours a night. Exercise regularly. Physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, and has been shown to reduce inflammation. Manage your stress. Chronic stress elevates inflammation throughout the body, including the brain. Mindfulness, meditation, or even a walk in nature can help. Stay hydrated. Dehydration can impair brain function and immune responses. Support gut health. The gut and brain are closely connected. A healthy gut microbiome can positively influence brain inflammation. Chronic inflammation is like a fire that never gets put out. It doesn't just burn the invaders, it starts burning the house down. When the immune system, whether in your body or your brain, becomes imbalanced, significant problems arise. Chronic inflammation is one of the biggest culprits behind many health issues, and it plays a direct role in the development and progression of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and MS. So let's explore each condition in detail and understand how immune imbalance contributes to these devastating effects. In Alzheimer's disease, chronic inflammation is a driving factor. Normally, microglia, the immune cells of the brain, play a critical role in clearing out harmful protein deposits like amyloid beta plaques. And these plaques are a hallmark of Alzheimer's and are toxic to neurons. But when the microglia become overactive due to chronic inflammation, they stop functioning effectively. Instead of cleaning up the plaques, they release inflammatory molecules like cytokines, which can damage nearby neurons and other brain structures. This creates a vicious cycle. The buildup of plaques trigger microglia activation. Overactive microglia release inflammatory signals, and these inflammatory signals kill neurons, which further disrupts brain function. As this process continues, it leads to the characteristic symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, such as memory loss, confusion, and difficulty performing daily tasks. The inflammation essentially shifts the microglia from being protectors of the brain to contributors to its decline. Now let's look at how Parkinson's disease is affected. Parkinson's disease is another condition where the immune dysregulation plays a central role. In this case, the immune system mistakenly targets dopamine-producing neurons in the brain. And dopamine is a neurotransmitter critical for controlling movement and coordination. If you want to know more about dopamine, check out our episode we did a couple weeks ago on neurotransmitters. So here's what happens. Chronic inflammation in the brain triggers an immune response against these neurons. Microglia release harmful inflammatory molecules, which exacerbate the loss of dopamine-producing neurons. As more neurons are damaged, the brain's ability to regulate movement declines. This is why Parkinson's symptoms often include tremors, stiffness, and difficulty with balance and coordination. Once again, the immune system, which is supposed to protect the brain, becomes a destructive force when it's out of balance. So we're going to take a break here and hear from one of our sponsors. Okay, let's look at MS, an autoimmune attack on nerve protection. In MS, the immune system goes rogue and attacks the protective coating around your nerves, known as the myelin sheath. Myelin act as the insulation around electrical wires, allowing nerve signals to travel quickly and efficiently between the brain and the body. When the immune system attacks myelin, the nerve signals are disrupted, leading to communication problems between the brain and the body. Inflammation damages not just the myelin, but also the underlying nerve fibers, the axons, causing permanent damage. Over time, scar tissue or sclerosis develops, further impairing nerve function. This immune-driven destruction results in the hallmark symptoms of MS, which can vary widely from person to person. And these symptoms often include muscle weakness, difficulty walking, vision problems, and connective impairment. The immune imbalance in MS highlights the double-edged nature of inflammation. It's a necessary tool for defense, but when it's misdirected, it can have catastrophic effects on the body. Now, what ties Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and MS together is the central role of chronic inflammation. In each condition, the immune system is either overactive misdirected, or unable to maintain balance. Chronic inflammation does more than just damage neurons. It creates an environment in the brain and nervous system that is hostile to healing. It disrupts normal cellular function, impairs communication between cells, and triggers a cascade of damage that worsens over time. Chronic inflammation is like a fire that never goes out. But in the beginning, the fire might be small and manageable. But if it keeps burning, it starts to destroy everything around it. In the case of neurodegenerative diseases, that everything is your neurons, the cells that control your memory, movement, and overall brain function. Now, it's important to understand that neurodegenerative diseases don't happen overnight. They develop slowly over time, fueled by chronic inflammation and immune imbalance. This means there are opportunities to intervene and calm the immune system, reduce inflammation, and support the body in ways that can slow or even prevent these conditions. Now, testing the immune system is key to personalizing your care. And I love to do testing. So understanding your immune health isn't just about guessing or managing symptoms. It's about uncovering what's happening inside your body. Testing is one of the most powerful tools we have to evaluate how your immune system is functioning. By analyzing specific markers, we can determine whether your immune system is balanced, overactive, or underperforming. And this is critical because immune dysfunction often shows up as a chronic inflammation, autoimmune condition, or an inability to fight infections effectively. So let's dive deeper into some of the most common and insightful tests we use to assess immune health. CRP, or C-reactive protein, the inflammation marker. CRP is a protein produced by your liver in response to inflammation. It's one of the most reliable markers we have for detecting systemic inflammation in the body. Now, here's what elevated CRP levels can indicate. Chronic inflammation, persistent inflammation as a hallmark of many chronic diseases, including cardiovascular disease, diabetes, neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and acute infection and injuries. Elevated CRP levels can also spike in a response to an acute infection or injury, helping us differentiate between short-term and long-term inflammatory processes. A high CRP level is like a smoke detector going off in your body. It doesn't tell us exactly where the fire is, but it lets us know that inflammation is happening. And from there, we can dig deeper to find the source and address it. T cell and B cell analysis. T cells and B cells are the workhorses of your adaptive immune system, and analyzing their function provides critical insights into your immune health. T cells, these are the cells that are like the field generals, directing the immune response and killing infected or damaged cells. Testing T cells can reveal imbalances that might point to an autoimmune disease, chronic infection, or immune suppression. Your B cells, these cells produce antibodies, the proteins that specifically target pathogens. A and B cell analysis helps us understand whether your body is producing enough antibodies or if it's overproducing them in response to an autoimmune trigger. For example, a person with a weakened T cell response may struggle to fight off viruses like Epstein-Barr virus or shingles. On the other hand, someone with an overactive B cell might be dealing with an autoimmune condition like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus. Now, while CRP and T and B cell analysis are foundational, there are other tests that can provide even more insight into your immune health. A cytokine panel. This is one of my favorite tests to look at when someone has an immune reaction going on. These measure the levels of inflammatory and anti-inflammatory molecules in your blood, and an imbalance in cytokines can indicate chronic inflammation or an overactive immune system. We can actually see if somebody is dealing with a Lyme disease, a fibromyalgia, a viral or a chronic viral episode, or a long haul syndrome, simply by looking at cytokine panels based off of the work of Dr. Bruce Patterson. Now, immunoglobulins such as IgA, IgG, and IgM, These tests assess the levels of antibodies in your body, helping us identify whether your immune system is producing the right amount of protection. We will often use these tests to look for infection, primarily bacterial, but also viral. And we can use the IgG and IgM to determine whether or not you have mycotoxins, mold toxicity in your body as well. And it can tell us the difference between what's coming from a contaminated food source versus what's coming from a contaminated environment. Now, you also have the natural killer cells, or NK cell activity. NK cells are part of your innate immune system, and they play a role in detecting and destroying infected or cancerous cells. Reduced activity can signal immune suppression. Now, the microbiome testing is so important. Since 70% of your immune system resides in your gut, evaluating the balance of bacteria in your microbiome can reveal whether your gut health is contributing to your immune dysfunction. Gut health testing is typically done by stool sample, and we can look at a whole host of things. We can look at bacteria, viruses, digestion, immune function, inflammation, fungi. We can really see a lot in that GI sample that we're looking at. Now, what are we looking for when we do these tests? Well, when we analyze these markers, we're looking for patterns. Is your immune system in overdrive? This can show up as a chronic inflammation or an autoimmune disease, or is your immune system mistakenly attacking healthy tissue? Is your immune system underperforming? This can make you more vulnerable to infections, slow the healing, and increase your risk for cancer. These tests aren't just numbers, they're clues. They give us a roadmap to understand your unique immune profile and guide us in creating a personalized plan to restore balance and optimize your health. Let me share an example. I'm going to call this person Lisa. She came to us with fatigue, joint pain, and brain fog. She'd been struggling for years without answers. We started testing her CRP levels, which were elevated, signaling a systemic inflammation. Next, we ran a T and B cell analysis and discovered that her T cells were underactive, but her B cells were overactive. And this pattern pointed us towards an autoimmune issues. Through additional testing, we identified Hashimoto's thyroiditis, an autoimmune condition where the immune system attacks the thyroid. And by addressing her inflammation through dietary changes, gut health support, and targeted supplements, we not only lowered her CRP levels, but we helped her feel more energized and clear-headed within just a few months. Testing doesn't just give us information, it gives you answers. It allows us to move beyond guessing and address the root cause of your symptoms. At Serenity Healthcare Center, we specialize in advancing immune testing and personalized care. By understanding your unique immune system, we can create a plan that restores balance, reduces inflammation, and improves the overall health. This isn't about managing symptoms, it's about empowering you with the tools and the knowledge to take control of your health. These tests aren't just numbers, they're clues. They help us uncover your immune system, uncover whether your immune system is out of balance, or so we can create a plan to help you heal. Now, let me share another story about one of our patients. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah came to us with brain fog, fatigue, and joint pain. And she was also struggling with forgetfulness, which was affecting her work relationships. So through testing, we discovered that Sarah had an elevated cytokine panel, and specifically something called TNF and VEGF. And what we found was her environment was actually making her sick. When we look at VEGF and TNF alpha, it immediately makes us suspect mycotoxin or mold illness. Well, we found that Sarah's work environment had several episodes of water damage, and that water damage, unfortunately, led to a moldy environment for her to work in. Her office was damp all the time. It smelled musty all the time. And it became the breeding ground for her immune system to start reacting inappropriately. And once we were able to get her moved from that building and get her working in an environment that was clean, and we were able to appropriately detox her body, all of her symptoms started to resolve. In about 6 to 8 months, Sarah started to regain her memory. She started having more energy. She started losing weight, which she didn't even realize was part of mycotoxin illness. And she began to heal. Healing isn't just about managing symptoms, it's about addressing root causes and giving your body the tools it needs to thrive. So, how can you support your immune system and protect your brain? Here's 6 actionable strategies. Anti-inflammatory diet, we talked about this earlier. Lots of green leafy vegetables, berries, omega-3 rich fish, and spices like turmeric. Avoid processed foods, sugar, and alcohol, which promote inflammation. You want to get plenty of sleep. We talked about that a little bit. We want to use targeted supplements like vitamin D, C, zinc, and magnesium to support the immune system and function. I really love to use something called plasmalogens as well. Plasmalogens actually help to repair the brain and specifically reduce inflammation in the brain. So if somebody's suffering from a neurological disease like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or MS, using plasmalogens can make a significant difference, along with some of the regular things that we talk about doing. Stress management, exercise, sleep, eating fiber-rich foods, considering the use of maybe probiotics if necessary. And then we use what's called a mitochondria protocol. So B vitamins, NAC, glutathione, riboflavin, hydrogen water. These are all things that help to rebuild that mitochondria so that repair can actually happen. So let's talk a little bit now about the research on microglia and neurodegeneration. One of the most exciting and rapidly evolving areas of medical research today is focused on microglia, the immune cells of the brain, and their role in neurodegenerative diseases. These tiny cells, which were once thought to play only a supporting role, are now being recognized as the key players in the brain health and disease. So let's take a look at uncovering some of the latest research and why it's a game changer for our understanding of conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and MS. In Alzheimer's disease, one of the hallmark features is the buildup of amyloid beta plaque and tau tangles in the brain. These are toxic protein aggregates that disrupt normal communication between neurons and eventually lead to their death. Under normal conditions, microglia are responsible for identifying and clearing out these harmful aggregates. However, in Alzheimer's, microglia appear to lose their ability to effectively clean up. Instead of protecting neurons, they become overactive and release inflammatory molecules, which can actually worsen the damage. And this is why it's so important for us to make sure there's no toxins that are crossing the blood-brain barrier to cause these neurological conditions. So here's what cutting-edge research is revealing for us. Impaired microglia function. Scientists are studying why microglia lose their ability to clear amyloid beta plaque. Genetic mutations in microglia-related genes like TREM2 have been linked to an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. An inflammatory cytokine, overactive microglia release cytokines, and other inflammatory signals that harm neurons and even recruit other immune cells to the brain, compounding the problem. And then there's this therapeutic potential where researchers are exploring ways to retrain the microglia, helping them to regain their ability to clear toxic proteins without causing inflammation. Now, in Parkinson's disease, the primary issue is the death of dopamine-producing neurons in the brain, particularly in a region called substantia nigra. Dopamine is crucial for regulating movement, and its loss leads to symptoms like tremors and stiffness. Now, the microglia play a dual role in Parkinson's. Early in the disease, the microglia help by removing damaged cells or proteins like alpha synculin, another toxic protein aggregate linked to Parkinson's. As the disease progresses, the microglia become overactivated and they release inflammatory molecules that can only fail to protect neurons, but actively contribute to their destruction. Current research is focused on identifying how microglia transition from protectors and aggressors and finding ways to interrupt this disrupted cycle. In MS, microglia are involved in the autoimmune attack of the myelin sheath, the protective covering of nerve fibers. Microglia amplify the inflammatory response in the brain and spinal cord, worsening the demyelination process. Recent studies are investigating how to modulate microglial activity in MS to prevent this damage. So, for example, in immune modulation, therapies that our scientists are looking at and exploring are drugs that can dial down the microglia activation without suppressing the rest of the immune system. And there's remyelination strategies. Efforts are also underway to stimulate microglia to support and repair the regeneration of myelin. Now, I will say there is a company called Prodrome Science that makes plasmalogens that's already been researching how the lack of plasmalogens can add to these conditions that are neurological in nature, Alzheimer's, autism, MS, and the repair or the increased production of plasmalogens in the brain can significantly reduce the symptoms or even reverse some of the damage that we're seeing. One of the most groundbreaking tools in the microglia research is the use of brain organoids, miniature lab-grown models of the human brain. These organoids mimic the structure of function of a developing brain, allowing researchers to study how microglia interact with neurons in a controlled environment. And here's what the brain organoids are helping us achieve. They're modeling diseases. Researchers can recreate conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's in organoids, observing how microglia respond to protein aggregates or to the stressors. And then they can test different therapies. Using these organoids, they provides a way to test potential treatments like drugs or gene therapy before ever moving to a human trial. And then there's genetic studies. By incorporating genetic mutations linked to neurodegenerative diseases, scientists can study how these changes affect microglial function and identify new targets for intervention. These technologies are game changers, offering insights that were impossible to obtain with traditional animal models in the past or in tissue studies. So the research underscores a critical point. A healthy immune system isn't just about fighting infections, it's essentially for maintaining brain health. Microglia play a pivotal role in protecting your neurons and keeping your brain functioning properly. But when they're out of balance, they can become contributors to devastating diseases. And the good news is that by understanding how microglial function and how they go wrong, we're opening the door to therapies that could slow, stop, and even reverse the progression of neurodegenerative diseases. Your immune system isn't just your defense system, it's your partner in building a healthier, stronger you. So, what does this mean for you? While science of microglia is still evolving, it's already shaping how we approach brain health. And here's what you can do to support your brain and your immune system. Stay informed. Knowledge is power. Understanding how inflammation and immune health impact your brain can help you make better choices. Prioritize anti-inflammatory practices. Eat a diet rich in antioxidants. Exercise regularly and manage stress, all of which support balanced immune function. Consider advanced functional testing. If you're experiencing symptoms like brain fog, memory loss, or neurological issues, testing for inflammation and immune markers could provide valuable insights. Ask your practitioner if they would draw a NK panel, a cytokine panel, a CD53. Any of these kinds of tests can be really helpful as a look into what your immune system is doing. At Serenity Healthcare Center, we're committed to staying on the cutting edge of research. We integrate these discoveries into our practice to help you achieve optimal health, prevent disease, and live your best life. Now, that's a wrap up for today's episode of Let's Talk Wellness Now. I hope you learned something new about the incredible connection between your immune system and brain health. Remember, a balanced immune system is key to preventing chronic inflammation and protecting your neurons. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget, check out our website for more resources and updates. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and let's keep talking wellness now.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. Let's Talk Wellness Now brings expert insights directly to you. Please note that the views and information shared by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Let's Talk Wellness Now, its management, or our partners. Each affiliate, sponsor, and partner is an independent entity with its own perspectives. Today's content is provided for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered specific advice, whether financial, medical, or legal. While we strive to present accurate and useful information, we cannot guarantee its completeness or relevance to your unique circumstances. We encourage you to consult with a qualified professional to address your individual needs. Your use of information from this broadcast is entirely at your own risk. By continuing to listen, you agree to indemnify and hold Let's Talk Wellness Now and its associates harmless from any claims or damages arising from the use of this content. We may update this disclaimer at any time, and changes will take effect immediately upon posting or broadcasts. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you find this episode both insightful and thought-provoking. Listener discretion is advised.